Fueled by C4, Cellucor, and Extend. Use the code Clydesdale to get 20% off at checkout at c4energy.com. On Clydesdale Media, where we bring you the widest array of content here on our YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notifier so you're first to know when new episodes are available. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Clydesdale Media Podcast. My name is Scott Schweitzer. I am the Clydesdale, and I am so honored and privileged to have with me Hannah Black. Hannah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So I met you at the Pasadena North America West semifinals. I got to interview you right after event one, and I'm actually going to play that for our listeners real quick.
Just
so we can kind of kick it off with one of the big highlights of your weekend. So it just takes me a couple clicks to get there, and we will share that.
So with Hannah Black, just winner of Heat 1, Event 1, that went really well for you. Were you anticipating that coming in?
I knew if I held my paces and just pulled the sled as hard as I could, that it would work out. The weird thing was that the sled was a lot easier going that way than it was coming this way. So it's like going that way was almost a rest, and then coming this way was like really dig your feet in.
How does that set up the rest of your weekend?
Started off with a bang. I got nothing to lose, so I'm going to send it the whole weekend.
All right, thank you very much, and good luck the rest of the weekend.
So what I want to start with is you came into this competition seated essentially out of being able to come. You were 62nd. You got a backfill to come to semifinals, and you start your weekend with a third place finish.
It was definitely a surreal experience with, coming in. We didn't even know if they would backfill or not. So I was kind of like teetering on the fence of, am I gonna go? Am I not gonna go? What does that mean? And I had also done team quarterfinals. If funny enough, my team was also right on the line. I think we finished 41st, and they took 40 teams. So it was like, I could go with team, I could go individual. And so finally, when I got that individual opportunity, I had 24 hours to accept. And so I knew that doing team was comfortable for me, and that I had never done an individual competition before. And individual scared me a little bit, and that's exactly why I had to choose it.
So that leads me perfectly into my next piece. I was walking down the street in Pasadena on Thursday, and a very good friend of mine is Chase Long.
Yeah.
And
Chase
so
is awesome.
Chase came up to me, and we did our normal like hellos and gratuities and all that, and he's like, "Dude, watch for Hannah Black." And I was like, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, she is really good. Nobody's talking about her, but she's going to be somebody this weekend." And I was like, "Okay." And so there you were, event 1, and I got to interview you right after because Chase gave me the heads up to make sure I was watching out for you.
No way. Yeah. Chase is one of the guys who I train with pretty consistently. He's on the Carhu team that I did quarterfinals with, and then ended up going with Carhu to semifinals. He's awesome. He's been a great competitor to have in the gym with me.
So I want to talk about that because you competed with him last year.
I competed against him in TFX. That's how I found out about Carhu, but I was living in Santa Barbara last year during the season.
Okay. So that's what, my notes say team this year too. That's what it was. You were on a different team last year, and then you did the qualifiers with Carhu this year.
Right.
Okay. So Chase is one of the nicest guys I've ever met, right? And
for sure.
What's it like training with him every day? And someone who's been around the CrossFit space for such a long time.
He's so well put together, and he's very conscious and deliberate in his efforts in the gym. And that's something that I definitely look up to. He just has this kind of like calmness about him, even when everyone else is not calm. So it's really cool to watch him and see him in certain situations, because I definitely look up to him. He was like a huge leader on our team, because I did train with the team for a really long time leading up to quarterfinals, because that was the original plan, was for me to go team with them. And so just, you know, watching him just take things with such grace, and even when, you know, workouts weren't going our way, he was just able to, you know, be very calm and figure out a plan. And that's definitely something that I need to work on. And so watching him do that has been super beneficial for me.
So you said that you had your two options. One was comfortable, one was uncomfortable. Did you seek counsel, or was it all pretty much on you to make the decision, team or individual?
Yeah, so I talked to a few people about it, because there was a solid 2 weeks of, you know, like not knowing what was gonna happen. And that was a very, very long 2 weeks. So I talked to my coach, Andy, at Carhu about the situation, because back when he was training CrossFit full time, he went to regionals a few times as an individual and then a few times with a team. So he had been on both sides of the coin of that. And I kind of told him, I was like, I think going individual, even though it wasn't what we planned for, would be an incredible experience for me, to grow as an athlete. Because in CrossFit on a team, it's just like you're out there with your three best friends who you train with every day. And it just felt very safe to me, because I'd done multiple larger scale competitions on a team. And I had never competed in CrossFit as an individual. And so having that opportunity, and having semifinals be my first individual competition, was a huge, huge honor. And I knew in my head, once I got that individual invitation, that that was going to be what was best for me to grow and learn, and kind of be thrown into this CrossFit space as an individual. And so I knew, even though it made me extremely nervous, that that was the one that I had to go with.
So I'm going to rewind us quite a bit back to East Carolina. So
Yeah.
the other thing I have to tell you is you have a very common name. So verifying the right Hannah Black can be
Right.
scary and all that for someone that's going to interview her soon. So I found you East Carolina, where you studied undergrad health fitness and then graduate biomechanics and motor control.
Yep, that's it.
You graduated cum laude at your undergrad. You graduated with a
Yeah.
9 GPA in your graduate studies, and you worked for the university as a TA and
Yep.
a researcher.
Yep. I had the best undergrad and graduate experience at East Carolina. And I actually did my graduate thesis on Isabell. So high intensity weightlifting and what fatigue does to technique, which was super insightful.
So yeah, what I saw in your student spotlight was that you did something on weightlifting. They did not say Isabell in your spotlight, because non-CrossFitters probably don't know what that means.
Right.
So anyway, my question to you is, did you do your thesis on Isabell because you loved CrossFit, or doing your thesis made you fall in love with CrossFit?
So I had weightlifted in high school and had been around CrossFit for a little bit. I wouldn't call myself a CrossFitter at that time. I would jump into class every now and then if it looked fun and there was a heavy barbell. But then I think when I really started to fall in love with CrossFit was probably around my sophomore year of college. I had briefly played volleyball for East Carolina, and when I decided that I didn't want to do that moving forward, I knew that I wanted to be competitive in something, and I tried to go back to Olympic weightlifting because I had done that in high school, but I just didn't get the same feel from it anymore. It felt like a chore instead of something that I got to do. And so there were a lot of kids my age doing CrossFit. And I had always said back in my weightlifting days, I was like, I'll never do CrossFit. Like, I'll never do that. And one of them was like, you should come try CrossFit. Just give it like a month and see what you think. And I was like, okay, fine. So I started doing CrossFit, and I was still very much like a class goer. Like I would I would pick the workout like the day that I wanted to go based off the workout, and
We
show up for class and leave.
thing.
You what?
We call that cherry picking.
Exactly. That was 100% me. If it was like anything more than, a 200-meter run, I was like, probably not going to see me that day. But yeah, and then one of my friends who went to the same gym started following a competition program, so much more volume, a lot more time in the gym, and he asked me to do it with him, and I was like, absolutely not. That looks terrible. And then I watched him do it, like from the sidelines for probably like 2 weeks, and he was getting his butt kicked. And then something in my head was like, yeah, that's what I have to do next. So started doing that with him, and followed a couple different competition programs with him throughout the rest of my undergrad and then through grad school, and then started competing here and there for fun. And then I think so doing my thesis on Isabell was really cool just because I was from a weightlifting background, so I understood weightlifting from like the Olympic lifting standpoint of like a 1 rep max, and like making everything perfect and going slow and really taking your time to hit positions. And then when I started doing CrossFit, obviously there is a like a give and take of how you move the barbell depending on your ultimate goal. And so it's very different between a 1 rep max and barbell cycling. So different that, in my thesis, one of the points that I made was we need to spend more time on teaching people how to barbell cycle. It's not enough for them to know how to 1 rep max snatch or 1 rep max clean and jerk, because there are a lot of things that change. And if you're aware of those changes and you train to lift like that, then that's awesome. But when, like injuries happen when you don't train certain positions, and I was a huge advocate of let's train all positions so that if you do find yourself in a bad position, it's not the end of the world.
Very interesting. So is that where the motor control comes in your graduate program? Like the repetitive motion, the goal is to have the same motion every time, right? But it
Right.
breaks fatigue, all that kind of stuff happens. Was that something you dove into with your thesis?
So I did a lot of like angle measurements and body position measurements. And so basically the variables that I tested for, so I used motion capture, which is a series of cameras that use small like reflective dots, and you can see where those dots are in 3D space, and you can track the movements and the changes of those dots. And so some of my like key variables that I tested for was so the lift at the start when the barbell's on the ground right before you lift it, when the barbell passed the knee, and then where the barbell was when you received it. And so basically what we saw, and this is typical, you probably could have guessed it, is that off the floor at the beginning of the workout, people were able to, maintain an upright torso for the most of it. And then pretty quickly on in Isabell, you start to see, the knee angle increase and the hip angle decrease, basically just lifting with your legs. And the funny thing was I did my study as well. So I was a participant in the study, and I knew exactly what I was looking for. And I knew that I was trying to make every rep look the same. And I still did it too. So I still basically shot my hips up, more or less did a snatch grip RDL to start the snatch, and then finished with it overhead. And I think that's kind of when it like changed in my head, is like, okay, we know that you would want to maintain your back angle in a 1 rep max snatch, because obviously you don't want to put that much pressure on your back if you're lifting at a very heavy load. Whereas it's doing Isabell is much different, because in my study, I used 60% of everyone's 1 rep max power snatch, so that the weight was a similar effort for everyone. So I didn't hold the CrossFit weight. but I wanted everyone to feel comfortable in the weight that they chose, so that they could try to maintain some sort of technique. But honestly, so we learned there's no possible way that you could do 30 snatches the exact same way that you would do a 1 rep max snatch. So some things have to give. A lot of people don't move their feet when they do Isabell. They basically are just picking the bar up, putting it down, hips stay higher, just things like that. And in my opinion, as like a competitive CrossFitter now, I wouldn't try to make those 30 repetitions look like my 1 rep max snatch, because it's a waste of time. Like I wouldn't win Isabell in a competition if I did that. So it was kind of like figuring out where you could trade off some sort of like traditional technique for speed, and what was safe, what wasn't, and you know, like you can never really define that, but it's based off of the individual. But it was a very interesting study for sure.
How many people went like total muscle snatch?
I would say a decent amount of them, especially the ones that got the fastest times, because I had a really wide range of participants. Like I had people who I would consider like elite level CrossFitters. Then I had people who had been doing CrossFit for a long time and had been snatching for a long time, but I would say like are probably somewhere in the middle. And then I had some people who started CrossFit no less than like 6 months before the study. And so yeah, what I found is the guy with the fastest time didn't move his feet, did it unbroken. And yeah, I don't think he rebent his knees a single time after the bar passed his hips.
Yeah, I've been doing CrossFit since 2011. When it breaks down for me, it's total muscle snatch.
Yeah. And that's what we saw. And so and again, like he walked off, he was like, all right, that was a great warm up, I'm gonna go do my workout now. So it's like it didn't affect him one bit. And so it's just interesting to hear the people outside of the CrossFit space saying like, oh, that's bad, like you're letting your hips shoot up, you're lifting with your back. But that's literally like more or less the objective of that workout if you want to win it. And you've seen, I'm sure, like the fastest Isabell times, that's what people do. And if you're strong in those positions because you train those positions in your training to be able to efficiently barbell cycle, then you're fine.
Yeah, I think it was 2015. Randy was one of the regional workouts, and everybody was muscle.
Oh yeah.
Not feet, you know, it was, and it almost gave CrossFitters a bad name in the sports outside of CrossFit, right? Because it looked pretty.
Right. And I mean, I'll be the first to say at semifinals in Linda, my deadlifts looked way more like RDLs than deadlifts. And that's a typical like pattern that I resort to when I'm tired in a workout. And that weight was, you know, like a moderate weight, but not heavy enough to where I had to really reset in between each rep. And that's just kind of the name of the game. I think the people who were, you know, the fastest at that workout were able to speed through the deadlifts, more or less, looking a little bit more like an RDL. And I'll say that's the first thing that I go to for sure.
So one thing that I noticed immediately upon meeting you is you are taller than the normal CrossFitter.
Yes, by a decent amount. Say that again.
It makes sense. You were a volleyball player.
Yeah, right. So
I'm not as familiar with the Olympic lifting world. Does that affect you as an Olympic lifter as much as
100%? Yeah. Unfortunately, having long femurs like I do and like other tall girls do, is not a good base for Olympic lifting. It makes, you know, like the pull off the floor very long. Whereas like you'll see some of the most famous and like most decorated Olympic lifters have short legs and long torsos. So unfortunately I have the opposite of that. I have pretty long legs and like a medium sized torso. And so, yeah, that definitely was something that a lot of people would say to me when I was first lifting in high school, like, oh, you don't really fit the build of an Olympic weightlifter. And I was like, yeah, tell me something I don't know. I'm also the only girl in this gym right now. So, yeah, I got a lot of that growing up in Olympic weightlifting. And I do get it a lot in CrossFit too, but I'm hoping that you know, the more that I train and trying to like fill some gaps that I have, that I can show that there's not just like one size of a CrossFitter. And that like you have people like Laura Horvath like out there absolutely crushing it, and she's definitely bigger than the normal CrossFit girl. And I think you got to play your strengths, and as long as you don't have like too big of a hole in your weaknesses, then you can make it work.
So you're about the same height as Annie.
Yes. Yeah, I'm like 5'9".
She's done okay.
Right.
Right. So
yeah, she's done 100%. Yeah. Just not the typical body structure.
Yeah. So one other thing about the motion stuff. Do you know Stacy Laram?
Stacy Laram.
You competed against her in Pasadena.
I know the name for sure. Yeah.
So she does the same. She does motion capture for the Boston Red Sox.
That's awesome. I did not know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So yeah, you guys have a connection that you could definitely.
That's so cool. Yeah. A couple of the guys that I graduated with from my graduate program went on to work in the MLB, which is really cool.
Yeah, she does all the stats for pitching for them.
Okay. Yeah, my brother played baseball at the university that I went to, East Carolina, and so him and a couple of his buddies came back and we measured their pitching mechanics, and that was really cool because baseball, just like CrossFit, lends itself to biomechanics really easily because pitching is like a closed chain event, so you can measure like a lot, just like weightlifting, closed chain, like we know exactly what's going to happen if you do it right and you make the lift, and that lends itself very easily to be measured in biomechanics. And that's one of the reasons why I chose Isabell, is because the snatch is so multifaceted. There's so many things that I could measure, and I cast a huge net with variables and got just like thousands and thousands of data points. Like I honestly, like I could pull it up right now and probably find a new trend that I didn't have time to look for when I was in grad school, but it's just a really cool way to break things down. And there are a lot of things in CrossFit lend themselves to be measured really easily. And one of the reasons why I chose to do CrossFit, or we had to kind of rebrand it as high intensity weightlifting, was because I wanted to shed more light on how CrossFit isn't this like big dangerous thing that people talk about. I think when people who don't, you know, like aren't involved in CrossFit and aren't very well educated on what it actually is, it's really easy to say like, oh, people get hurt all the time and like you're lifting with terrible forms. Like if you look further than that, like CrossFit is, you know, preparing you for anything that could possibly happen in life. Like a good example that I use with some of my clients is like, when they ask me why they're deadlifting, I'm like, do you want to be able to pick something up off the ground? Like when I have them do burpees, I'm like, do you want to get up off the ground if you fall down? Like it's very easy translated into everyday life. And I wanted more people to know about it because I think it's an incredible way to train, an incredible way to prepare yourself for, you know, getting older and being self-sufficient. And I just wanted to shed some more light on it.
So I echo that completely because I've hurt my back a lot. Never in the gym.
Right. So that makes sense.
Use bad form in CrossFit. I use terrible form picking up laundry baskets.
Right.
And that's when I throw my back out, not in the gym. Because in the gym, I'm set up. I know I'm lifting a heavy weight. I know
exactly. You're ready for it.
That laundry basket, you know, you're over half sideways.
Right. Exactly.
One of our listeners, Corey, he said, I'm here with short legs and a long torso and terrible Olympic lifts.
Well, unfortunately, those aren't the only two things that you need to be a good Olympic weightlifter. You need a lot of things to go right. But anatomically speaking, if you have a shorter pull off the ground and a longer torso, then that lends you to be built a little bit better than Olympic weightlifting compared to someone who has really long legs and a short torso.
Yeah, crazy. So, and yeah, there's so many different body types. Like I think we're getting to the point where like Brent Fikowski has overcome a lot.
Right.
A lot of outliers. Colton Mertens has made his third straight CrossFit Games. So we have outliers
Yep.
on both sides of the spectrum.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, yeah, I mean, you find different ways to train. Like, when I was in my internship doing sports biomechanics and we had 7 foot tall basketball guys, we usually never let them deadlift from the floor because they're just not anatomically set up to be good at that. And so you always have to find, like, there's a give and take on how you train certain people, and you have to remember like the outcome as well. Like, these guys were training for the NBA draft. Like, there's no need for them to deadlift off the floor. It's not pertinent to their NBA career. But we do want to build explosiveness and we do want to build strength. So we would set them up a little bit higher. So I think biomechanics and using it to measure, things in CrossFit just goes to show like there's no one way to do something. Like, my Olympic lifts look much different than someone who's a foot shorter than me. One of my teammates on the Carhu team, Taylor Palm, she's like a whole foot shorter than me. And we do things very differently. And she found, the best, most efficient way to lift the barbell. And so do I. And unfortunately, she can cycle way faster than me. She has like a foot less to pull the bar. But yeah, same outcome, different ways to do it.
Yeah. How does the worm work on that situation?
So she was in the middle and I was at the end. So it was kind of like a little bit of like a U shape. The boys on our team were decently tall, but it's so funny because like anytime we would have to share a pull-up bar, she would either have to jump like a whole foot, or I would have to pick her up, or I would like have to risk like basically like hitting my feet on the floor every time I came through the bar. But yeah, it's funny because our cycle times, like for pull-ups, toes to bar, all that stuff, were just like so wildly off in the beginning that I had to slow down a little bit and she had to speed like way up. So it was an interesting time there, but we figured it out.
Yeah. And Chase is fairly tall for a male in the sport.
Right. Chase and I are very similar in height. I think he's only like a couple inches taller than me. So we would do a lot of synchro stuff together.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. So then you graduate and you go to Variant Training Lab in Santa Barbara.
Yep.
And
yeah, so I had an internship out of grad school.
I'm sorry.
Say that again.
You're good. Keep going.
So yeah, I took an internship out of grad school at a place called Peak Performance Project in Santa Barbara, and that was where I was working with some pre-draft NBA guys. So that internship was a little bit more on the coaching side, a little less biomechanics, and then I took a job at Variant Training Lab as the biomechanics specialist. And so what that entailed was our facility was owned by a physical therapist, and he owned the physical therapy clinic right beside our facility. And basically, it was a great business model. What he would do is there would be people coming off of like huge, like life-altering injuries and huge surgeries. They would go to his physical therapy clinic. And I don't know how much you know about like physical therapy protocols, but a lot of them would finish their physical therapy and be like, what do I do now? Like, there's no way I'm back to 100%. Like I am still have a ton of things to work on, a ton of strength to build. And so we would recommend them to come to Variant, and how it would work is they would come in and see one of our physical therapists and go through a physical therapy, like head to toe kind of evaluation. And the physical therapist would then pass them off to me in the biomechanics lab and say, this person just got their, ACL reconstructed, and we want to test their lower leg strength and to figure out like, okay, so their leg that wasn't injured, the unaffected leg, is at X amount of strength, and their affected leg, the one that they just had reconstructive surgery on, is 60% weaker than their unaffected leg. And so I would use technology like a biodex machine that measures muscular strength and other things like movement screens and tests and things like that to kind of quantify what they needed help with. And then we would take that information and build a like subject specific training protocol for them. And so for ACL rehab patients, it was a lot of BFR, so blood flow restriction training, a lot of really small movements to gain back that strength in the leg. And then month after month, they would come back to me and I would retest, and they would like slowly close that strength gap. And then if they were an athlete, we would do like back to sport protocol. If they were, gen pop, we would just try to make those legs as similar as they were before they got the surgery. So it was a great job, very rewarding, an incredible first job for me to have out of grad school.
So this is wildly fascinating to me. One, you are super intelligent, and I love this. Two, you say gen pop, and then you have like elite athletes, and you worked with both.
Right. Yeah, I had the privilege of working with a very broad span of clientele. So ranging from guys that, got drafted in the first couple of rounds of the NBA draft, ranging to, like a mid 60-year-old woman who had both knees replaced. So it was a really cool experience, just because working with elite level athletes is an incredible experience, because it's so rewarding when they're able to, go off into the NBA and be incredible. And then also like with the general population people, they were there, basically because they wanted to regain strength to do everyday life things. And when they closed that gap, that was equally rewarding, just in a different way of like saying like, I'm self-sufficient again. Like I don't need someone to help me, around the house. Like I can walk without stopping for X amount of feet. And like that was huge too. So it's all in like the little wins, and working with those broad spectrum of people was so rewarding. It
sounds eerily familiar to a CrossFit gym.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Because I have my L1. I've coached in the past before I started doing this media thing. Like you're working with some people who have a shot at making the games, all the way to we had people in our gym 70 years old, just there to live a better life.
Right. I think the CrossFit community and the way that it brings people together who would never have been, like friends or even acquaintances outside of those walls is such an incredible experience. And having that in college was, oh my gosh, like incredible, because I would go back to, like the dorms or wherever I was, where there was only college kids. And, it's very typical, like going to class, talking about, what college kids talk about. And then I would go into the gym, and one of my friends who was an adult would be like, hey, how's your day going? Like, are you doing good? And I'm like, whoa, no one has asked me that in the last like 2 weeks. Like the only person who asks me that on a daily basis is my mom. And so like, meeting people who are in different phases of life than you, but you also get to share this group experience of suffering, more or less. It is such a cool experience. And having adult friends in college was so good for me, because they like kind of took me under their wing, and like they would invite me to their house for dinner, and my friends would be like, oh, where are you going? I'm like, I'm going to get a home cooked meal. Like you guys have fun in the dining hall, but I'm gonna go eat a steak. And so it was a great experience. And the people that I met in my first CrossFit gym, and any of the CrossFit gyms that I've been to, like I still keep in touch with, and it's a really cool experience to have that. And I think, yeah, once you suffer with someone and you're laying on the ground, like barely breathing, and they're doing the same, we just did the same workout, like that's such a cool experience. And I love the way that CrossFit brings people together.
I think when you're in college, home cooked meals are worth more than money.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah.
So that's really cool that people invited you into their homes. And that is the way a CrossFit gym is, right? It's bigger than people outside the space can understand.
Exactly.
So I'm going to dive back into CrossFit a little bit and your performance over the weekend, but I need to know how you got from Santa Barbara to Austin.
So, I'd been living in Santa Barbara a little less than 2 years, and I was kind of just figuring out my next step in life. I learned very quickly that I am not a office like 8 to 5 type girl. And so even though I absolutely loved my job and what I did, it was very hard for me to stay, you know, like in one place for that amount of time. Because I had always been in more of like a hands-on setting where I kind of made my own schedule. And so I knew that was something that I really wanted to do in the future. And so I kind of started looking at other opportunities and other jobs available to me. And I ended up finding a gig kind of like helping someone write a strength and conditioning certification that would have been remote. And so I did that for a little while and decided, you know, like I could do that from anywhere. And my sister lived in Austin, Texas, and I had visited her and loved it. I had competed against the Carhu team in TFX the year before and talked to them a little bit and just kind of said like, oh, my sister lives here. Like, you know, like if I ever come and visit, I'll drop into your gym. And so I ended up doing that probably like 6 months before I decided I wanted to move. And I loved their gym, loved the community. Like it reminded me a lot of the gym that I started CrossFit in. And so I think just things just kind of kept adding up and I decided that California wasn't where I was supposed to be anymore. And so I made the move and moved in with my sister in Austin, found Carhu, found the couple of coaching jobs that I have now. I work for On It, which is in Austin. And then I also work for another gym called Athletic Outcomes. And then on the side, I work for NOCO, doing demos and things. And so I kind of just everything lined up to where I could come to Austin and give this CrossFit thing like a real chance. And I jumped on my first opportunity.
When you made that move, when you say this CrossFit thing a chance, was that as a team or did you have aspirations to go individually?
I think in my head, I was going to give team, like I was 100% sold on team. And I thought that, you know, moving to Austin was a safe bet just because there's so many CrossFit gyms here. There's so many athletes, so many people. I was like, I'm bound to find the people who I want to be on a team with and in the gym that I want to do that at. And so, yeah, I definitely, especially since I moved in October, which is not an ideal time in the season to move, because it like the open comes up like a few months after that. And then, you know, like things are basically solidified going from there. I had 100% in my mind known that like team was my way to go this year. Whether or not I would have dabbled in individual the year next or like the coming year, I didn't know yet, but I definitely was sold for team for the 2023 season.
So when you competed at TFX against Carhu, was it in January of 22?
Yes.
Okay. I was there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Where I met Chase.
Yeah. So they ended up winning. We ended up getting fourth by like a few points, which was sad. But yeah, it was a great experience. And then I actually did TFX this couple of months ago with my team from California. And that was a great experience as well. A really good couple of teams that we went up against. And yeah, so I competed with that team. And then the plan was from there to compete with the Carhu team.
Okay. And then the best laid plans. You know, I know that you are strong in your faith according to your Instagram. And
100%. 100%. Yeah. I think it was kind of divine intervention at this point because I'd had coaches in the past, my Santa Barbara coaches and a couple of other people tell me like, you need to go individual. You're wasting your time with team because I'm someone who takes what I do very seriously. And so I don't do anything like halfway. I'm a 100% or nothing type of girl. And so it was going to be really hard to find 3 other people to do the same thing. And that was kind of like the problem I was running into because Santa Barbara was such a small CrossFit community. There was only 2 gyms there and there weren't a ton of people that were willing to, you know, essentially put their lives on hold to make a shot at the CrossFit Games. And so I ran into it there. And then when I got Karhu, we were still kind of figuring out the whole team dynamic and like who was going to be on the team and what that looked like and how we would train and things like that. And funny enough, I was not going to do the individual qualifier for semifinals. I was only going to do team quarterfinals. But what ended up happening is a funny story. So the TFX qualifiers and the Wodapalooza qualifiers this year fell on the same 2 weeks. And I will be completely honest, those were probably some of the worst 2 weeks of my life. It just, I feel like one thing after another, you know, like didn't go my way. Like the video would cut out on a qualifier, or I would be absolutely wrecked and have to do 2 more qualifiers the next day. And it was really stressful because I mean, I wanted to do my best, and it was really hard to do all of those qualifiers in the same 2 weeks and work and, you know, maintain a life outside of the gym. And it was really hard, and it took a toll on me for sure. And so I told my coach, I was like, I hate qualifiers. They are the worst. And he was like, yeah, well, you're going to have to do a lot of them, so you should get used to them. And I was like, ugh, well, I know what that means is like, I should probably do the individual quarterfinals qualifier workouts. And I want to do them exactly how they're written. I want to put tape on the floor. I want a judge. I want a camera rolling, just so that I know my phone even has like 20 minutes of storage. And so he was like, all right, well, if you're going to go through all of that, like, are you going to pay to put your name on the leaderboard? And I was like, probably not. He was like, you are crazy if you don't do that. And so I kind of like wrestled with it a little bit. Because if I didn't put my name on the leaderboard, then like that wasn't trying to make it anyway. But if I did and ended up, you know, like doing terribly, then that just kind of like solidified how terrible I did. And so I went back and forth. And then finally I was like, you know what, like, I'm doing the hardest parts. I'm measuring the floor, I'm weighing my weights, like all that stuff. I might as well just see where I stack up. Like if not this year, for next year, to see, you know, like what it looks like to try to be an individual. And so the first 2 workouts, we were just like very nonchalant about. It's funny, because like in my video, there are people like walking in front of me. And like, you know, it's just like we were very chill about the first 2 workouts, because again, it was just an experience for me. It wasn't my goal to go as an individual. And then I think the third workout with the burpee box jumps and the clean and jerks came out, and I obviously loved that one. And when I finished that workout, my score was entered. I jumped from like a pretty low spot up to like, I think like 64th. And I was like, when I saw that, I was like, wait a second, like I'm like within striking distance, like this could actually be a thing. And so that's when me and my coach kind of had a meeting, and we were like, okay, we definitely need to reevaluate how we're approaching this, and let's actually like give it our best shot, and like let's strategize, let's talk about, you know, how you're going to do the last couple of workouts and figure out what's best for you. And so then I think we started to see that like it could be a possibility that I could go as an individual. And we took the last couple workouts a little bit more seriously. And then when I finally, like, the scoreboard was solidified, it was nerve-wracking, because I jumped from, I think, 62nd down to like 56 at one point, because like people's videos were getting docked and like all this crazy stuff. And so I kept moving like every single day. And then finally the scoreboard was solidified and I got 62nd. But then my coach was like, I'm pretty sure that means you're going to make it, because there's no possible way all 60 people are going to accept, because I even knew a couple of girls personally that were going to deny that to go team anyway. And so that's when I was like, oh my gosh, like I think I accidentally made it, which was kind of funny. And so, yeah, it got like much more real in the following weeks.
So that begs the question, do you perform better not stressed, or does the stress help you get better?
I think it probably goes hand in hand. I had like almost like a surreal like calmness at semifinals, because I went in and like I mean I constantly prayed throughout like the whole weekend, just saying like, you know what, like, God, you got me here. Like I would not have been here on my own. And show me like what you want me to get out of this experience. And the more that it unfolded, and I think definitely going in with I didn't even expect to be here type attitude was incredible for me, because I was able to approach those workouts like whatever I do out here is just extra. Like even just being here is huge for me. So anything that I do that like moves me up a spot on the leaderboard or gets me some points, that's just extra. And I had like kind of this just like supernatural sense of like calmness from, you know, praying about it and just saying like whatever you have for me is what I want to experience. And it was a great experience.
So it's got to be surreal, because you come in, nobody's really talking about you, right? Chase was, friends were, and then all of a sudden, bam, you're in third place after event 1, right?
Yeah.
And then,
I honestly, yeah, I didn't think that that score was going to hold. Cause I knew I'd won my heat and that was awesome. That was super cool. You know, didn't expect to do that, but I was like, okay, like it's just the first heat. Like we'll see like what everybody else gets. And then it ended up, you know, sticking.
yeah, it stuck, and it had a run longer than 200 meters. So you
Yeah. Yeah, if you would have told me that that was going to be one of my best or second best workout of the whole event, and it had a 2,000-meter air runner in the middle of it, I would have been like, you are insane. But I will say running was one of the things that I worked on so much leading up to semifinals, and we knew in that workout like I wasn't going to win it on the run, but I could definitely lose it there. And so knowing that in my head, knowing that, you know, like a huge chunk of that workout was going to be on the air runner, I'm kind of just staying calm. And I am like a numbers person. So my coach told me like the exact pace he wanted me to go at, like in between like two numbers basically. And I held that pace for the whole time, which was, you know, the plan. And it went perfectly, because then I was able to pull the sled a little faster and set me up to be in a pretty good spot.
So then you go to event 2, which from an outsider's perspective would not be your strong event.
Right.
You
Right.
started off really strong, and then
Yeah.
the muscle ups kind of went away at the end.
Right. That's been very typical for me in training is I can handle muscle ups at the beginning of a workout, and I'm pretty explosive with my hips and can turn over pretty well. And then, you know, like the longer the workout goes, the tighter I get, and things start to fall apart a little bit. But I had done better in that one in training. So not getting back to the box that third round was definitely you know, like upsetting for me. But honestly, I just kind of had to like take a step back after that workout and remind myself like the athlete that I was that time last year, I don't even know if I could do a single ring muscle up with a backpack on. Who knows? I have no idea what would have happened. And so just to know that I'd made so much progress in the short amount of time that I had been in Austin, just honestly, like there's no way that I could have been upset about that. Just because it's night and day, you know, like my efficiency on the rings from a year ago to now.
So Corey's asking a question. Scott, does she follow a particular program, or does her coach program for her?
So yeah, I follow my coach Andy St. Germain's program 100%. So he's our competitor coach out of CrossFit Yakarhu, and he writes everyone's program, and he gives me a little bit more like one-on-one help when I need it.
So my next question is, how long did it take you to learn to pronounce Yakarhu?
Honestly, I went there for probably a solid month and said it wrong. I was pronouncing the J, and one day it was Chase. He was like, say the name of our gym, and I said Jakarhu, and he was like, I can't believe you. So yeah, definitely learned that one pretty quick after that. So yeah, Yakarhu. And I mean, sometimes we just say Karhu to shorten it up, make it a little bit easier for people.
Yeah, it always makes me nervous when I see it written down.
Right.
You know, so I
Yeah.
understand that one. So then you come off of that event and you finish 40th. I went like, that's kind of damage control, right? And
Right.
and you know the next couple are going to be good for you.
100%. I was so excited for Saturday. So
So you
excited. So
Saturday on fire. Linda, which with your long levers could be tricky, but you handled
right.
it awesome.
I loved Linda, and honestly, I was so pumped that it was dumbbells and not a barbell for the bench, because I think there's definitely um, an aspect of skill in the way that you pick the dumbbells up, so that you can start with your arms extended. And I didn't really bench much in high school growing up. I played softball, and the strength and conditioning programs that we followed said not to bench much if you were a throwing sport athlete. And so I didn't have a ton of experience with that. And then when Linda got released and it was with 60-pound dumbbells, I was a little nervous just because I knew I didn't really know how to do that yet. But we spent a ton of time, honestly, more than anything, just like statically holding the dumbbells and like just getting them in the position that I wanted them. And that helped a ton. And so finally figuring out how to, like set the dumbbells on my knees and then lean back and like have my arms extended. Once I figured that out, I knew that that was going to be a great workout, because I feel like I'm not going to miss a deadlift. I ended up actually getting a no rep for one of the squat cleans, because I think I dropped it before I had like shown control at the top. But I wasn't going to miss another squat clean. But the only thing that could have been like a little iffy is like what I did my dumbbell bench press sets in. And all throughout that workout, I was able to keep them unbroken and start in a really good position off the knees. And I think that was the difference for sure.
Yeah, that was awesome to watch. The people who got that down, like it was.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was a former power lifter too. And
Okay.
benching is all biomechanics. If
Yeah,
you're
it's all about levers, it's all about distance.
if you're in the right barbell path, it's gravy. If
Exactly.
you're not, horrible.
Exactly. And yeah, it's just all with like muscle recruitment and how you can be most efficient and things like that. And so yeah, when you set yourself up in that good position with your arms locked out and like you're pressing through your heels and your core is tight, then they moved pretty quickly. And I definitely got tired there in the middle and they got a little slower, but I was able to keep them unbroken, which was huge in that workout for sure. So yeah, that I had a blast doing Linda. Like I had so much fun.
Well, we are flying through this hour. Now we're gonna show the big one, right? The event win. And this is my videographer, Teddy Williams, captured this in Pasadena. And so here it is. 215 pounds, like butter. How did that feel?
Honestly, I was so excited to snatch because like you never know what the events are going to be. You could go years without getting that one thing that you really want to see, and for it to be in my first semifinals and like a true, well, I had to run to get there, but more or less like a true 1 rep max snatch, because it wasn't a complex, like I didn't have to do a ton of stuff to get there, was a dream come true. Honestly, I think it was a God thing. So I'm so thankful for that. And it was funny because so I opened at 205, which was not our original plan. But we knew that it was in my best interest to really pace the 800 leading up to the snatch so that I was calm, like cool, collected, and could really actually like give it a few good attempts. And so we decided to be a little more aggressive with my opener at 205, because I've done weightlifting competitions and had my opener be like around 200. And so I was pretty confident in that. And so yeah, the first bar, 205 bar, flew up. Probably was one of the best snatches I've ever done not wearing lifters. And then the 215 bar got me on my toes just a hair, but honestly like felt so light. I think I just was excited and pulled a little too fast off the ground and got me forward just a little bit, but honestly felt incredible. And then I knew when 2:15 felt like that I had to go for another attempt. And I got a little bit of backlash from people saying like, oh, you don't need that last attempt, like you already won the event. But number one, I didn't know that at the time. Like I didn't know what girls behind me were lifting, nor was I going to take the time to look. And then also someone in the warm-up area said that 2:15 had already been hit. So I was like, in my mind at that point, I was like, I really got to go for it. Yeah, some people asked why I went for 2:30, and the real answer is that I had hit 2:25 in training that Tuesday. And since we can only jump by 5 pounds, I was not going to match my PR. I was like, that's super lame. I'm not going for 2:25 again. I've already done that. I'm going to go for 2:30. And unfortunately, I rushed it a little bit, and I just overpulled a little bit and lost it behind. But honestly, in the weightlifting world, when you miss behind like that, you're supposed to go up. So I was pumped.
So you did something sneaky that threw a lot of people off, and that is some change plates inside.
On the inside. Yeah. So why? Honestly, so I knew that bar math under pressure like that was going to be like super stressful. And if you look at the pictures that were taken, I actually had like all my bar math like written on the inside of my arm. And it wasn't even like math. It was like literally like blue, green, white, like, and that's like what I needed to put on the bar to like make whatever weight I wanted. And we had talked about it with my coach before, what the easiest way to load the bar would be. And it was to put the 5s on the inside because I didn't want to have to keep taking them on and off the end of the bar. So if I put the 5s on the inside, it set me up where I could just add whites on the outside. And they didn't say that we couldn't do it in the briefing. And so I was like, all right, that's my cue to do it then. And so, yeah, I got a bunch of pushback for that. People saying like, like I didn't actually lift the weight that was said. And then someone appealed it at semifinals and like all this crazy stuff. And it just, honestly, like I didn't do it to be like sneaky or, to try to pull one over. It made the most sense. And we knew that I wasn't going to have a ton of time to load the bar. And it was just one less thing to worry about.
Yeah. It caused havoc in the media area.
My apologies. That's funny.
The thing is, everybody's like, well, it's not like it can't be about being sneaky because they're announcing the weights.
Yeah.
So it's not like she's hiding anything.
It was just so I didn't have to take it off and replace it with another weight.
Yeah. It makes sense.
But yeah, it did throw some people for quite a loop. But yeah, that was just so I could add whites at the end and not have to worry about taking it on and off.
Yeah, totally get it. But I am telling you, it did cause such an uproar.
So I heard, yeah. Even, someone appealed it at semifinals saying that I didn't lift that weight.
Yeah, we heard that too. So anyway, you get your first event win at semifinals, which is a big deal. And then there's all this chaos around. Did any of that chaos take away from the joy that was winning the event?
No, honestly. So the only thing I wish it was like a traditional like one event. Because that one you had, your 2 minutes and then you had to go back to your start mat and get ready for the next one. And it was funny. I was so caught up in like what happened that I completely forgot the rep scheme of the next workout. And so someone has a video of me. One of my really good buddies was on the medic team and was standing literally like 3 feet away from me. Thank God, like God placed him there for me for sure. And I like look over and I see him and like the clock is ticking down. And I was like, Tavis, what am I supposed to do right now? And he was like, it's 8 snatches and then you run. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, right. And then like literally like 10 seconds goes by and then I'm out there snatching and running. So yeah, it was quite the experience.
Yeah. And then again, you're back to running. So
right.
Semifinals with 2 runs in it. You can't cherry pick out.
Yeah.
Finish that event in 31st.
Right. Yeah, honestly, that was a win for me. We thought that the barbell was going to be a little bit more of a separator, but everybody moved it just like I did, super smooth, unbroken. So I got almost no lead from that, and then it was really just who can push harder, who can hurt more on this 800, and yeah, honestly, I was pretty happy with finishing middle of the pack on that one. Because again, not really known for my running, and I think it was a good event for me because there was a little bit of barbell, but again, like we thought that would be a little bit more of a separator, but just ended up, being everybody doing them unbroken.
So we're at the hour. I always promise my guests an hour maximum. Can I ask a few more questions? You have time?
Yeah, of course,
Okay, cool. I want to respect your time.
of
So
course.
then you finish off the weekend, and going into the final day, you're in a qualifying position.
Right. Yeah, I sat in sixth, I believe, after that.
And then I have to ask the question, was it fatigue on Sunday, or was it the way the events lined up?
We knew that Sunday was gonna be, a harder day for me for sure. I'm notorious at not being very good at strict handstand push-ups. Yeah, my biomechanics brain is like, long arms, really heavy legs. That just doesn't really lend itself to be a great movement for me. And that's not an excuse by any means. It's just something that I'm aware of. And so we knew that workout six was going to be damage control and just like to do whatever I could do. And honestly, I'm sure from like a spectator standpoint, they would look at my performance in event six and be like, wow, she absolutely bombed that one. But honestly, I walked off the floor like prouder than I've ever been. There's 20 strict handstand push-ups in that workout, and to even get to them, you had to do 2 seated legless rope climbs with a legless descent, and that quite literally could have been like my worst nightmare. And so I worked my butt off leading up to semifinals in pulling and pushing strength. And honestly, I'm so proud that I got through the workout there as much as I did, because I, like knowing that there was 20 wall facing strict handstand push-ups in that workout was terrifying to me for sure. Just because wall facing is not something that I had ever really done before this season. And I kind of had to figure out how to approach that movement, and especially in that type of like high pressure situation. And I walked off the floor as happy as I could be, honestly. I Out of all the workouts, I was most anticipating that one, and being able to get through all 20 of the handstand push-ups and do another seated legless rope climb after that, I was over the moon about.
Isn't it funny how the outsider may see it as your biggest failing of the weekend, but internally, it was your proudest moment?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's all how you look at things, and I think again, like the athlete that I was a year ago, I'd had some shoulder issues in the past, probably stemming from playing volleyball for so long, and so doing the strict handstand push-up movement, really aggravated it, and so I stayed away from them for a while until I had to do them, because I had been diagnosed with a shoulder impingement more than once, unfortunately, and so when training that movement, it was almost like guaranteed that my shoulder was going to hurt for a decent amount of time afterwards. And so that was, kind of just part of the game, being smart about how you train them when you train them. And so just being able to know that I did 20 of those and like wall walking to get up there definitely adds some shoulder fatigue. And then walked off the floor feeling fine. Was honestly like a dream come true, because I had been, straddling the line of how hard do I push and like what's the payoff of that? Is my shoulder going to hurt for the next week, the next 2 weeks, the next 3 weeks? Who knows? And so honestly, I was super proud of it, and not for a second look at that workout or my performance in that workout as a failure.
So then you go into the last event, which on paper I would say would be a good event for you, power output.
Mhm.
Was it a case of you had to go all out for a shot?
I think so. And I mean, a lot of factors played into, the last day of the competition, and none of these are excuses. Like I did what I did, and I narrowly missed out on the games my first season, and that's awesome. But I will say, like, I woke up Sunday sick. My lungs were on fire. I was coughing, couldn't breathe through my nose. And I'm sure many athletes had the same experience. I think just my CNS was absolutely trashed. And so yeah, woke up Sunday sick, not feeling really like myself. And so when it came time to really push the bike, which was what our strategy was on that workout, because we knew I would have to break toes to bar probably faster than everyone else. I just kind of I was like, all right, I'm gonna rip the bike, like it's gonna, like put a really high power output here, and it just didn't go, like not even for a second. I was like doing everything that I normally do to get the watts up really high, and they just weren't there. And I think that's kind of like you roll the dice and you get to the last day of the competition and things don't always go your way. But, like moving forward next year, I've told myself, like, last day, I'm not even going to be in the position of like, oh, I might qualify. Like, I'm going to qualify for the games or die trying this next year. So if I do get to the last day of the competition and don't have like such a great final event, like hopefully I'll have a good enough cushion of points that it doesn't matter.
So that kind of leads me to the final set of questions, and that is, what did you learn about yourself most in this week?
Honestly, I just learned that being outside of my comfort zone is terrifying, but in the best possible way. Again, like I had never done an individual competition before. So standing out there on the floor when it's literally just you is an experience. And I'm newer to the CrossFit space. I knew one girl out of 60 before I got there. And it just happened to be that she trained with me a few times in Santa Barbara. And so being out there, not really knowing anyone, whereas these girls, there's some girls there that have been going to semifinals for, like 5, 6, 7 years in a row. So it was terrifying, but I learned that I can do it and I am good for so much more. And, going through this next season, I'm so excited just to have a plan and to plan to get to the games, because this past season was kind of just like, I fell into it and, I took whatever I got and I did as much as I could. But now that I have like a whole year to plan to get to the games, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I'm, again, like I will qualify for the games or I will die trying. So I'm really excited to put the work in.
So you said you showed up there, you knew one person,
Mm-hmm.
and you have this video on your Instagram that's making the rounds of the podcast circuit. Savon has said it's like the piece of content to come out from semifinals, even better than anything CrossFit has produced. And so I'm going to play it. A lot of people probably have seen it, but it is this one.
Right.
And it tells a story. And what is your story from this moment?
So I had noticed Katrin was standing by my lane in event 6 when I was trying to get my last rope climb. And I got the first rope climb after the strict handstand push-ups. And then the second one, unfortunately, I did all the work and got my hands above the red line and then just couldn't hold on for that legless descent at the end. And I tried, like 3, 4, 5 times, however many times I tried, and just couldn't get it. And then the buzzer went off, and Katrin was, like standing right there waiting for me when the buzzer went off, and she was just so kind. And I think she definitely probably thought that I was going to be pretty upset, but I wasn't. I was pumped. And so to share that moment with her, because she had kind of told me, she was like, I've been in the exact same situation as you a couple regionals back. And I read the Ben Bergeron book that talks about it, and it said, like, that was one of the best things that's ever happened to her. And I definitely think that event could, be one of the best things that's ever happened to me too. Because even though it didn't, it didn't bring me to my knees and I wasn't like devastated about it, it's definitely not something that I would continue, to do in a semifinals workout. So she was there for me. And it was really cool because, you know, like, I think when I first started CrossFit was the year that she won for the first time. And I thought that was like so cool that someone like her was absolutely just crushing it. And I remember watching the second year that she won thinking like, oh my gosh, she is like the coolest person in the whole entire world. Like, I want to grow up and be like that, because I was still pretty young at that time, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And so to have her waiting for me after what I'm sure everyone thought was like, you know, like the lowest moment of the weekend was a really cool experience.
Yeah. And Alyssa's asking how tall you are. You said 5'9" earlier in the show. I
5'9".
think she
Yep.
checked a bit late. So, gosh, I'm going to end it on this. I'm having Cooper Marsh on the show on Thursday. I saw that
Love Coop. Yeah,
you signed with Lab Management.
I did.
Did that happen after semis?
It did. Yeah. He actually had known a couple of my mutual friends, and a couple of other agents, you know, like try to reach out to me during the semifinals week, and a little bit after that. But I talked to Cooper probably maybe like a week and a half, 2 weeks after semifinals, and just got, you know, like the best vibes from him. And like, he just asked me all about my story and like what I'm about, and, you know, like my goals and what I want to do moving forward. And our values aligned really well. And he and Daniel were just so kind and made me feel like family. And so, yeah, I signed with them, and it's been great.
Cooper's the best in the business, right?
For sure.
And the one that what I would say he is best at is spotting talent. So that has to give you a sense that not only is your belief in yourself going up, I'm assuming after this weekend, but other
100%.
people are believing in you as well.
Yeah, that's an incredible thing, because like, I think, you know, I got a lot out of semifinals as an experience, but the main thing, the main takeaway was like, I can hang in the last heat. Like, I deserve to be there. Like, I belong there, and I will work, you know, day in and day out for the next year to get back there. And just to see like it wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't just you know, luck of the draw, or like the events that were that made up this semifinal. Like, there was no luck about it. Like, I worked so hard, and to see that, you know, like other people realize like, okay, she can hang, she could be there, she can do it, is such a cool thing. Because I won't lie, I mean, I think CrossFit lends itself to some high highs and some low lows. And sometimes it's hard to, you know, always have that like blinding like belief in yourself. And so when other people like Cooper and my coaches at Carhu, and people like Chase, who have just been around CrossFit for so long, to say like, no, like, you have it, like, whether you see it or not, whether you believe it or not, like, you have it and you can get there. It just takes like you wanting it more than anything. And which is, I have that for sure. Like, I lay in bed at night, like not sleeping, thinking about how I can do better at ring muscle up. So like, it's just, it's this belief that I can make it next year. And like, not even next year, like, I can have like a great career in CrossFit, knowing that other people think that about me as well, like, means the world to me.
So last question, you're now known as a power output athlete, right? You win the power output events.
Right.
You quickly improved from semis, or from quarters to semis, in some of the engine stuff. So I'm assuming the next year is building that engine stuff.
100%.
And do you have the confidence that you can do it because of how fast you've improved in the 2 months between the two events?
Yeah, I know without a doubt I'm exactly where I need to be right now. Carhu is, you know, like the best place for me. One of our owners, Jess Estrada, is on CrossFit gymnastics seminar course. So she's on their staff, and she has already worked with me on some gymnastics things. And Andy, my coach, you know, was always known to have like a great engine and things like that. So like, I have all the puzzle pieces that I need to basically patch some of those holes, so that next year I'll still have like, you know, high highs on that power output scale, but my lows and like the gymnastics and and engine and other things like that aren't going to be so low. And that's all you really have to do to make it. So yeah, I have 100% confidence in where I am and my coaches, the people around me and my environment, that I will be able to improve tenfold from the athlete that I am right now.
Well, I want to thank you so much for jumping on.
Thank you for having me.
I'm watching you. I only got about through half of my notes. So
hey, maybe we'll have to do a second one.
After the games in the off season, when you have a little bit of time, we'll have you back on, because I want to dive into your faith. I want to dive
100%. I would love to talk about it.
Plays with your mind as an athlete.
Right.
And dive into those two things too. But with that said, this was a great episode. Thank you so much for jumping on.
Thank you so much for having me.
And everybody in the chat, thank you so much for being here. We love you all. We'll see everybody next time on. Sure we will. We'll see everybody next time on the Clydesdale Media Podcast.